Good morning. This is Andrea from Club SciKidz. Thank you so much for joining me today. The experiment that we're going to do is another experiment that is based off of using the scientific method. Today I provided a worksheet that you can print out that has all of these steps listed of the scientific method. If you don't have a printer, that is not a problem. You can just recreate this chart on a blank sheet of paper, and I'll also go through and show you how exactly to do it. So the reason why we use the scientific method when we're doing experiments is so that we can stay focused on what the purpose of our experiment is, and that we can then do it in an organized fashion so that our results that we find can be valid. So what we're going to do today, from the videos, you know that we're dealing with apples, and we are going to focus on how to make this apple. When we cut it, how do we make the pieces not turn brown? You learned in the videos that when you cut an apple, you're cutting the enzymes which create a chemical reaction, and then oxidation takes place. So because we are doing this experiment using the scientific method, the first thing that we want to do in all good experiments, they start out with a question. What is the question that we are trying to solve as we do this experiment? And in this case, the question that we're trying to discover is which liquid is going to prevent the apple from browning the most. So whether you have this worksheet or you just want to write it down on a sheet of paper, we start with our question. This will keep us focused throughout the experiment. The second step of the scientific method is to come up with a hypothesis before we start. A hypothesis is an educated guess. What do you think is going to happen? Based on what you know about the topic and just your general opinion, what you think is going to be the result. My hypothesis is I said that I think that the lemonade is going to work the best. Because in my mind, I know that lemons do contain acid, so that may help prevent the browning. But I also know that in lemonade, there's also a good amount of sugar. And maybe that sweetness will help it from turning brown. So my hypothesis is right here. So go ahead, take a second. Which liquid, out of the liquids that you're using, which liquid do you think is going to work the best? The third and fourth step then of the scientific method is where we actually perform the experiment. It's broken up into two pieces. The supplies or the materials, what do you need to do it? And then the procedure is how you did it. So this way, everything is clearly written down. So if somebody wanted to recreate the experiment or see exactly how you came up with your results, it's all right here. So you can go ahead and write down the supplies that you're going to need based on the liquids and juices that you're using. And then as you do it, you just write the step-by-step procedure. So the nice thing about this experiment is that you can use any liquids that you have at home. You can use things like lemonade, fruit juice, but you can also use water, and then a variety of different waters like salt water, sugar water, honey water. Anything that you have at home, you can use those liquids. I'm going to do 5 different liquids. And the other thing about when we do an experiment using the scientific method is we always want to have a control piece. The control is the thing that we're not going to touch. So we're going to cut this apple up into 6 pieces. One of the pieces will just sit in a cup and it's going to do what it does. That's going to be our control. We're not going to do anything different to it. So that way, when we put all of the other pieces of apple in a different liquid and we want to compare how brown it got or how brown it didn't get, we have something to compare it to, the control. We need to get cups and decide what your liquids are. Here are some of the possible liquids that you can use for your experiment. And I will get my experiment set up and I will meet you in the kitchen in a couple of minutes. We are in the kitchen, and what you need to do is before you cut that apple, you want to have all of your liquids set up and labeled so that as soon as you cut your apple, you can simply just drop them all right in. So you can see that what I'm using is we have a control. There's nothing in this cup. Then I have just plain water. Then I have salt water. I have lemonade. I had some leftover beef broth from dinner. We're gonna use that. And then we also have lemon water. So again, you can use whatever liquids you have, even if all you wanna do is a variety of different waters, that's fine. So go ahead and get your cup set up, and then we will cut the apple and we will get started. My apple is cut, so I'm going to put one piece in each cup. We have my control. We have the plain water. We have the salt water. We have the lemonade. We have the beef broth. And then we have the lemon water. So you want to make sure that they're turned so that they can be fully submerged. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave mine sit for 10 minutes. I'm going to set the timer at the end of 10 minutes. We'll come back and we will compare and look at our apples, and then we will fill out the rest of our scientific method chart to see if we can figure out the answer to our question of which liquid will prevent the most browning. So my timer went off, and I actually ended up leaving the apples in the liquids for 20 minutes. So here you can see the results. Even though some of them did turn brown, it's interesting to see how they turned brown at different spots. So the control, this was just sitting out in the air. That one is pretty, you know, it's turning brown. There's the water. The salt water did fairly well. That one may be the least brown, actually. Lemonade also did well. It did get brown right at the cut and then also down here. The beef broth, there's definitely some brown spots right around the seed and then also at the bottom. Then the lemon water, that one was brown, mostly where the cuts were. So when looking at my experiment, I actually think that the salt water, for me, my results are that the salt water prevented the apple from browning the most. And then I'd say a very close second was that lemonade. So now what we need to do, because we do have the results, we need to go back to our sheet and mark down our results and then draw some conclusions from those results.